Hi there, welcome to another episode of Platypus Knitting. My name is Bobby Olan and I am here as usual with Pearl the platypus, who helps me out a bit when I say the wrong thing. Thank you for coming back for another one. This is my last episode of 2021, so the wrap up of 2021. So I guess let's just get into it. What do I have to share with you today? I'm mainly going to be talking about things that I have finished knitting and one that is still on the needles. So I'm not usually, I don't usually make a lot of Christmas presents. I don't usually knit a lot of Christmas presents for people, but this year I've kind of just gone for it. So I've made a few different things that I just want to share with you, and I want to kind of talk through all the troubles and fixes I had to go through to make all of those. Before we get into that though, I guess I just want to say a few admin-y things about this channel. So first of all, I do want to make some changes going into 2022 when I come back. So I'll probably be coming back mid-January, and I do want to go to a more regular schedule, which is what I had originally intended. But like I have said in previous episodes, this has just been such a difficult year with a lot of unexpected situations popping up. So it's just been difficult to do this regularly, but I'm hoping that next year will be better and more trouble-free. Hopefully, we will see. But anyway, I want to go to a fortnightly schedule for this channel when I come back, but I will be taking another month before I get into that next year, just to enjoy the holidays, relax a bit, and sort of do a bit more planning for exactly what it is that I want to do. So other changes that I'm kind of still thinking about are, one is, if anyone has been looking at the site that I have kept for my show notes, I did refer to it in the previous episode, but then I didn't end up putting out a blog post for it, just because it felt like I was just doubling up on just typing out what I'm saying to you now, and it just felt like a lot of unnecessary work. So I'm not sure that I want to completely get rid of that site, or if I just want to change things up a bit. So I guess we will see what decisions I come to, but there probably again won't be another typed up description of this episode on that. So the website is something that is going to change. One other thing is, I am kind of happy with the segments that I have in this channel, but I think I might just want to, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking about how I can do them differently, or at least make them less formal and a bit more casual, because I just want this to be a really casual me talking and sharing my projects and crafty experiences with you vlog. So I don't know if I'll keep the names. I'll probably loosely sort of keep the segments and still talk about those various things, but I just may not formally introduce each segment as here we are, now we're talking about this, and now we're talking about this. So we'll see how I go, if I just want to like sort of let it flow naturally and see what happens there. What else? I'm thinking, so originally when Pearl started popping up, she really was just correcting things when I couldn't think of the right word to say, or when I say the wrong thing, and then I sort of started just like inserting her in more, just for a bit of fun and interest. But I'm kind of feeling like it's like she's not really taking the attention away really, but I feel like there may be too many things to focus on if you feel like you're having to listen to what I say, look at what I'm doing, and read her little tidbits when she pops up and says something. So she may just go back to correcting me. So we'll see about that. I think that is it. One other interesting thing that happened recently is I started watching Arne and Carlos's Sit and Knit for a Bit podcast, and they have the same intro music as me, so it's the one that goes like this. So I mean, I shouldn't really be surprised to come across that because we're obviously using the same audio library, which is one that comes from YouTube, and it's a free audio library where you can, you know, select whatever music that they have. So we've obviously selected the right one. Part of me is like, oh, that's neat that I picked the same music as, you know, such prominent figures in the knitting design world. And the other part of me is like, I don't want it to seem like I've copied them or anything like that, even though, you know, I chose that music nearly a year ago, or probably like more like 9 months ago or something like that, before I ever started watching any of their stuff. But that may change as well, so we will see. So yeah, I guess that's it for all of the admin things. Moving on to Stat Chat, I mentioned already that I'm going to be talking about all of my Christmas knitting. So like I said, usually in the past it is 0, and this year I have a few, so I'm just going to check the notes that I've made for myself. So all in all this year, for Christmas, I have made / will finish making 4 pairs of socks, 1 beanie, 1 cowl, and there are a few other gifty things just kind of around this area this time as well. So my sister, who is pregnant, has also asked for a set of like beanies and mittens and socks for her baby, who is due early next year. So I guess that doesn't really count as a Christmas present, but she is down from London and she is leaving just after Christmas. She's going back up to the UK just after Christmas, so it's kind of got to be done by Christmas pretty much, so I'm counting it as that. So it is also her birthday on New Year's Eve, so I made her a long time ago. I think I showed it in the very first episode. I hope she doesn't watch this. I don't think she does. But I've made her a sweater, and then just because can be a bit hard with distances, we didn't really do birthday presents this year, but since she is here, she has said that she needs a new scarf, so I'm going to be making a scarf for her as well that's kind of like for her birthday last year, but obviously I'm giving it to her this year, and I'll be doing one for her partner as well. But for those two, so I have bought the yarn for those, but I will be doing them on the knitting machine just because I still have other things that I am working on that have to be handmade, and time is short and I am not that fast, so I'll be popping those through on the knitting machine, and maybe I'll try to take a video of that to share with you when I come back next year. So that is that. So we'll move straight on to all of the things that I have made. Just have a bit of a coffee break here. This beautiful holiday mug here was gifted to me by my other sister who's in Western Australia. I love Christmas, and it was so unexpected. A parcel showed up at my door at some point last year, and I was not expecting anything, and I couldn't figure out, and I thought that someone had accidentally you know, chosen the wrong address on checkout, and I was asking like all of my family here, and I was asking all my workmates, did anyone accidentally choose my address and ship a package to me? Like, I thought maybe they had sent something to me so that it wasn't going to their home, so that it could be hidden from whoever they're gifting it to. But no, it turns out my sister in Perth had sent me this lovely, gorgeous Christmas set. It's absolutely beautiful. 2 mugs, 2 bowls, and 2 plates that are matching. But anyway, that's a bit of a tangent there. And I kind of only bring them the mugs out towards Christmas. So anyway, what am I talking about first? So first up is the South Turner hat by Layla Raven. So that one is actually from the Making magazine. So this is issue number 9, Simple. So just pop that to the side there. So it is this one here. So I just think it's a lovely, like, it's fairly simple really. It's just like a ribbed hat, but I like that there's the 2 different, well, I mean, they look different in the photo here. The 2 different the 2 different types of ribbing. So you've got your 1x1 for the brim, and then it goes into a 2x2, and it is also twisted stitches, half twisted rib, so yes, which uses twisted stitches, which I really like. So I have made that one there. So this one I made in Bendigo Woolen Mills Galaxy yarn in 8-ply, which is a wool and bamboo blend. So this color is called Evening Shadow, and I absolutely love, so I mean, from a distance it's kind of like just a dark, like a really dark greeny gray, I feel like, but when you look at it up close, like, it's got there's a bit of fluff there. It's got like hints of like a purple, and you can like see the green a lot more clearly, and then like a really dark gray mixed in there too. So I just think that colorway is really pretty, and I just really like how twisted stitches look, especially in a rib as well. So the pattern is designed to be worked flat, so you're knitting back and forth and then you seam it all. I didn't want to do that, so I just sort of modified it to be worked in the round. So you cast on at the bottom of the brim, and you do your 1x1 twisted rib for, I can't remember how long that is now, but for whatever length that is meant to be, like, I don't think it's quite 10 centimeters. But yeah, and then the pattern calls on you to do a row of purl, so you can see it makes that line there, and it just naturally wants to fold over. So the purl bumps are on the inside, and it just wants to fold. It's like a built-in crease line, which is really neat. So the thing is, because I was working it in the round, I guess I just got overconfident, and I was like, I don't really need to like think about this. I'm just move from one to the other and it'll be fine. But then of course I got about this far, I think, and I realized that my twisted, so only the knits are twisted, and I realized that the twisted knits, the twisted columns of knits on the 1x1 and on the 2x2 were on the same side, which was not right, because obviously when you fold up the brim, you're seeing the other side, the inside of the 1x1. And I realized it was just because I had not paid attention when I was converting the pattern from working back and forth to working it in the round. So what I ended up having to do, I obviously had to tink back to the top of the 1x1 twisted rib. So what I did instead, I could have just done a row of knit instead of a row of purl, but then it meant when I was going to the 2x2 section, I would have been doing normal knits and purling through the back loop, and that would have just been such a pain. I mean, knitting through the back loop is really easy. Purling through the back loop is not as easy and just a bit fiddly and annoying, which I didn't want to do. So what I actually did is I was working in the round, doing the 1x1, and then I started going in the other direction. So when I did this row that is all purl, I did it as, what did I do? Yeah, so if you think about it, like when you're working, you're going, which direction are you going? You're going clockwise, anti-clockwise. You're kind of, because you're moving it to the right needle, so you're kind of going that, yeah, so you're going clockwise. So I started working anti-clockwise, and I did one row of knit, and then I kept working in that direction, so that I could be knitting through the back loop and purling the purls. So I did have to do like a bit of, I think I put in a yarn over before I started that knit row, and then when I got to the end of it, I knit together the last stitch in the row with that yarn over, just to try to make sure that like there wasn't a gap there. And I can't actually find where that is now, so I guess that worked, but yeah, I can't find it. I thought it was really obvious when I finished working with it, and I wasn't completely happy, but I figured it was in the fold anyway and you wouldn't see it. So anyway, that ended up working really well. So I think that's all that I have to say. Just checking my notes again. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the South Turner hat. So I hope that the person that I am giving to likes that. Pop that aside there. So the next thing that I want to talk about are the Isabellina socks that I have made, which are these ones here. So I knew for quite a while that I wanted to make some socks in DK for my partner for Christmas. He really likes when I make him socks, and they've all so far been in fingering weight yarn. But since I made the Stepping Stones pattern by Clara Parks in DK, which are another couple of pairs of socks that I am gifting for Christmas, I really liked how quickly they knit up, and just how I like the thickness of it. So I looked for a while on Ravelry trying to find another pair of socks that I liked, and I found a few that were alright, but I wasn't completely loving them, and I can't remember which one I was going to go with, but there was one. So I bought this yarn, which is the it is by Peyton's Australia, and it's in 100% Corriedale, which I think this is the first time that I've worked with a Corriedale yarn, which is fantastic. I'm really interested in getting to know other sheep breeds. But anyway, there was another sock pattern that I had picked out, and I swatched in it, and you couldn't really see the pattern in this yarn. It was really hard to make out. So I mean, there were other patterns that I liked, but like I said, I just wasn't loving anything. And then I follow, I can't actually remember which hashtag it is that I follow on Instagram, but maybe it was like Test Knitters or something like that. But kind of like a week or so before I was ready to start working on his DK socks, I like this pattern popped up on my Instagram, and as soon as I saw it, I thought it was just so beautiful and so simple, but just like pretty and effective. So they're the Isabellina Socks by Cowl and Lyle. I sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Lisle. By the way, all of the links for all of the patterns will be in the YouTube description down below, so you can find them all down there. So the Isabellina Socks, one thing that I really liked about this is you can see how the pattern is going up diagonally. So I think it is the left foot is going up diagonally to the left and the right foot is going up diagonally to the right. I mean, he's not going to pay attention which one he puts on which foot, but either way, it's, you know, they're going to be going in opposite directions, whether it's that or that. So yeah, so anyway, as soon as I saw this, I really liked it. So I went on Ravelry and I bought it pretty much straight away, and here we are. So what else do I want to say about these? So the interesting thing is, because I've been watching all of these knitting vlogs this year, I feel like they've really helped me improve my knitting, or at least, you know, my understanding of knitting. And one of the things that I have learned is that it can generally, I mean, unless you're trying to get a certain effect, it can generally be better to work certain types of stitches or certain types of accessories or garments or whatever at a tighter gauge, just so that they're sturdier and are more hard wearing and last longer. So these socks are actually knit at the same gauge that I have used when I've made fingering weight socks. So they are really quite solid and firm, which is, I'm hoping that, you know, that will help them last a lot longer. So let me just looking at my notes. So yeah, so first of all, when I read the pattern, I was just so excited to start that I completely misread the sizing directions, and I started making the size medium, and I think I had gotten, I had worked the gusset on both, and on one of them I have done the heel flap and started the leg, and then I tried it on my foot and it fit me really well. And while they still had like more stretch to fit a bigger foot, I felt like it was the perfect negative ease on my foot, and they needed to be much bigger for my partner. So I got him to try them on, and yes, they were too small. I mean, he could get them on, but it was really snug. So I ended up ripping everything out and starting again. So my plan for these was always to do a contrast toe. I only bought one ball of the yarn in 3 different colors, so one ball of each color, because I wanted to see how far I could get knitting a pair of socks with one of their balls. So I always knew that I wouldn't have enough to do the whole sock, so I knew that I was going to have to do the contrast toe at least. So in both instances of knitting it, so the first size, which was wrong, and then when I went to do the correct size, I started here at the bottom of the foot. So I did a crocheted provisional cast on, and then worked up. It's a toe up pattern, and then I did the toe at the very end. So in the first instance, when I was making the medium size, I did the heel in the main color, which is river sand. The yellow toe here is called acacia. So with the medium size, I was able to do the heel in the main color, and I would have been able to do the leg, and then the cuff would have been in the acacia colorway. But when I started making the large, I realized if I didn't do a contrast heel, then they'd be ankle socks, And I thought about doing that for a while, but I think I've only really made him mid-calf socks in the past. And I think maybe for the next pair, because like I said, I have a third color in this as well. I think for the next pair I will make ankle socks. Maybe in this pattern, maybe in a different one. But anyway, because I did want to have a longer leg, I did the contrast heel in this pair, which worked out. I think that looks really good. So what else can I say about this? So I got the stitch gauge on these, but my row gauge was different. I think it called for 32 rows in 10 centimeters, and I was getting 44 rows. So when I did the gusset, I added a few rows to make up that length, which also meant I was adding width to it as well. So I'm hoping that's going to be okay, because my stitch gauge was right, so maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have found a way to add length somewhere. So we'll see how that fits. If I need to re-knit it, then that's fine. I'd rather get it right. So yes, I added a few rows there. What else did I do? Oh yeah, it's really interesting when you get up to the leg, when the pattern, you know, starts wrapping around the whole thing, you're constantly changing the beginning of your round. So the way that this just worked out for me is if this was the start of my round here, every time I was moving the beginning of the round one, you know, it starts shifting. And I think I did just enough rows so that it got exactly a quarter of the way around, which I thought was kind of perfect. I mean, you're not going to be able to really tell unless you inspect it where the start of the cuff is, but I liked that the cuff would start directly in the middle of either the front or the back, because like I said, the spirals are going in different directions. So one of them, the beginning of the round kept moving towards the back, and the other one, the beginning of the round kept moving towards the front. So yeah, so so I got the length that I wanted, and it got me right to that point there. And then I did the cuff, and then I had just enough yarn for each of these to so just enough yarn to weave the end. I followed one of the spirals down along the edge of the heel, and then I was able to have enough of a tail to sort of weave the heel turn, just to have that as a bit of extra reinforcement. So not the whole thing, there's a little bit there where you can see is not reinforced, but most of it is, and I guess that's the more crucial bit anyway. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. The only other thing I think I have to say is, so this pattern did call for, you know, your sort of standard heel toe, where, you know, you're just decreasing. Well, I mean, the pattern was toe up, so it would have been increasing, but I obviously picked up my provisional cast on and knit the toe down, which I prefer anyway. I like the look of decreases better than increases most of the time, but I wanted to try something different. So I found on Roxanne Richardson's channel, she has this, it's called the Star of 4 Points, and if you can see there, it has the pearl, it has like some pearl features, which I thought kind of matched the stitch that's going on in the rest of the sock. So yeah, I mean, I think it's not a perfect match obviously, but I think it's a nice little decorative feature. Yeah, and I think that worked really well, and it goes together pretty nicely, so I'm pretty happy with that. So those are the Isabellina Socks by Cowl and Lyle, and I really like this yarn. What I would actually like to do is get every single colorway of it and make him a pair of socks in every single colorway. Maybe not the acacia, since it will also be the contrast yarn in the other color that I got. The other color that I got is a green, I think it's called Scrubland. So I'll keep using the acacia as a contrast for that one, but maybe depending what length I want to make his other socks, I might do some that are ankle. I might have to buy 2 balls to make ones that are, you know, all one color. And yeah, I really like this pattern. I don't know that I make I don't know that I do all of the colorways of this yarn in the same pattern though, but we will see. So I think that's all I have to say about that one. So the next gift item that I finished making is this here. So this is called the Forest Park Cowl. It is by Liz Abinanti. This is, I think this is one of the first patterns that I ever favorited on Ravelry, but it's really hard to tell because of the way I use Ravelry. When I wasn't using it properly when I first jumped on, I was putting everything in my library rather than in my favorites, whether I, you know, had the pattern or not. And then a while ago, I moved everything around. I moved things that I didn't actually own into favorites and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, this is the Forest Park Cowl. I think it's such a pretty cable pattern. It's this bit especially, the garter stitch with the edges there, I just think is so effective and pretty. And this is knit in, oh, I've just realized I didn't turn my lights on, sorry. So, all right. Okay, so what was I saying? This is knit in, let me get my notes. I just chuck them on my Kindle, just a bit easier, and we don't have a printer here. But anyway, this is in Derarum. I really should look up how to say this. It's French, so I'm not going to try to pronounce the R's. Derarum Natura in their Gilead yarn. And the colorway is quartz. So the yarn that this called for, so the yarn itself, it was the suggested needles and gauge were not exactly the same as the suggested needles and gauge for this yarn, but I thought they were pretty comparable and they'd be pretty similar, so I didn't bother doing a swatch. So the suggested yarn was using, I can't remember which way it went, sorry, I didn't look this up, but it was suggesting a set of needles and the gauge, and this yarn was using I think it suggested using the next needles up, and the gauge was just that much different as well, that it seemed to be that if you used the same needles on both, you'd get a similar one. So I didn't bother doing a gauge swatch, and it's a cowl as well. It doesn't need to be sort of an exact fit type thing, so I kind of just went for it. So the pattern called for 274 meters of yarn. One ball of this was 250 meters. So I originally was doing some calculations trying to figure out you know, how many pattern repeats I could do of each section, and it was just going to be one pattern repeat less of each. But I started as I was knitting, as I got to the end of the first section, I weighed how much I had left, and I was calculating, you know, what percentage of the yarn I've used up, and then what percentage way of the pattern I had gone through, and I realized that I would actually be able to knit the full thing. So you start on the smaller circumference here, and you knit, and then you do some increases, and then you do a slightly different cable pattern because it adds this extra cable here, and then you just keep going. So yeah, I was really pleased that I was able to do the whole thing. I just think it's such a pretty, it's a simple and really effective design. And I thought that even how she had planned out the increases was really well considered. So they were kind of spaced out over the pattern repeat, which is 4 rows. And I just thought they were just really well thought out to increase so that you get this extra little cable here. So anyway, I got to the very end of the pattern and I still had yarn left, which is I was really surprised by, because it was, you know, 25, the ball that I got was 25 meters less than what the pattern called for. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to have that any leftover yarn from this, because it's just like, it would have been such a tiny amount that I couldn't really use it for anything else. And I just didn't want to add it to my, you know, I just didn't want it. So I thought I would just keep going. But instead of just doing another couple of repeats, what I did was I added my own set of increases. So if you can see here, the cable is going like it's going in 2 ways, so there's 2 sides of it, and then the other one that was added is just going in the one direction. So the increases that I added just made it so that that last little bit went into the 2 directions as well. So I as per the original set of increases, I did them over 4 rows. Actually, I think I did the first row and then I realized I wanted to do this. So I did the increases over the next 3 rows, and then I was able to do one other 4-row repeat just to do that one full set of that extra cable there. And then I did 1 extra row, because when you start the pattern, you don't do the cable immediately. So I didn't want to finish on the cable row, because the cable is the last row in the pattern. So I think I just did 1 extra row and then I bound off. So yeah, so I think I did Tilly Buddy's very stretchy cast on, and then I did the stem stitch or the half hitch bind off at the very end, which I'd never done before. I used that cast on all the time, but that's the first time I've tried that bind off, which is another one I picked up from Roxanne Richardson. Although I didn't actually do it her way, I found another tutorial that was by Brooklyn Tweed. So it's a sewn bind off, and I think the way you do it, Brooklyn Tweed was bringing the needle in under like a loop of yarn, and she was going over, and I think I just sort of slightly liked the going under method better. Just look up the stem stitch bind off if you want to see what I'm talking about, because I don't think I'm explaining it very well. What else do I want to say about this? So one other thing that I'm really pleased with about this pattern is pretty much for every single project that I do, I have to think back a lot. There's always some mistake that I've made, or I realize I've got the sizing wrong somewhere, and there's like frogging back. The only thinking back that I had to do for this was because I had lost track of which row I was on. So I thought I had done something wrong, and I hadn't, but I undid 4 rows and I redid them, and then I realized, oh, I had actually done them correctly. I had just lost my place in the pattern repeat. I thought I should have been at a certain point but I was actually at the correct point where I should have been. So that I'm really pleased with that. And then the final thing that I just want to say is when I was working with this yarn, it felt pretty stiff and a bit rough, which kind of surprised me because it is 100% merino, but and I was worried that it would just be really stiff on and have no drape at all. But then when I washed it, because I block everything that I make, it did like loosen up a lot. It doesn't have as much drape as I would have liked. So, you know, if I were to make this again, if I were to redo it, I'd probably just go up a needle size if I was going to do it in the same yarn. But I think it's fine as it is. It's still, you know, pretty comfy and cozy. So that's that for the Forest Park cowl. There we go. All right, so what is next? So that's it for the ones that I have finished. The next one that I'll show you I am working on and I haven't finished is this one here. So this is called I Just Want to Go Home, which I think is really cute. This is by Winter's Weather Knits. So this, I think the pattern calls for like a heavy DK or a light worsted, and I'm using Rowan Felted Tweed DK. This is the cinnamon colorway, which I really, really, really love, because I love cinnamon in real life. I love real cinnamon. So and I love tweedy yarn, so this is kind of just like so many things that I love in the one yarn. Anyway, so because the yarn I'm using is a bit finer than what's called for, I'm using the stitch counts for the large size to achieve the sizing of the small size. So I haven't gotten far here. Again, it's another toe-up pattern. Before this year, I'd only done one toe-up pattern and I really didn't like it, but I'm kind of liking them now. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I've just finished up to the foot. So I had actually gotten all the way up to, I'd finished the gussets on both and I had done the heel turn on one, but I was thinking it looked really short. And I thought that I had accounted for my difference in row gauge as well, and I thought I had knit to the length that was required and still accounted for my different row gauge so that the gusset would be the right length. I'm going to confuse myself if I try to explain it much further, but again, it's the exact same situation as with the Isabellina socks. The row gauge, I got the stitch gauge perfect, that is spot on, but the row gauge, it was calling for 32 rows and I was getting 44. So I guess that's just the difference in my yarn weight or my knitting style, or I don't know, what have you. Yeah, so I think I had only knitted the foot to about that point originally, and then I did the gusset and I put it on my foot. And again, it fit me perfectly, but the person that I'm knitting for is a bigger shoe size than me. The width is totally fine. Look how much stretch there is there. But she's got longer feet than me. Everyone has longer feet than me. I've got really tiny feet. So anyway, I had to rip back all the gusset. I think because I have a notebook where I keep track of all of my knitting, because I like knowing how long things take me to make. So I ripped it all out and then I looked at all my notes, and it was 4 hours of work that I'd tinked back. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. I much rather get the right fit, of course. Yeah, so anyway, so this is this stitch here. she calls the weight stitch. So I had never done it before. I'm not sure if it's the same as what is called the puff stitch, but it is really puffy. It does require more concentration than this stitch pattern. So it's probably, I mean, it's not hard. It's just a bit more fiddly, and I just have to pay a bit more attention to what I'm doing. So it's not really mindless knitting, which is what I usually pick for my sock patterns, but I just think it looks so pretty. It's like such a lovely effect that you get. It looks squishy, which it is. It's so squishy and lovely, and I may actually make a pair for myself as well in some other yarn that I've got. Yeah, so the thing about this yarn is, I mean, you can see, I hope, how hazy it is. It's got all of these, I don't know if this is what you call kemp, but it's got a lot of it. It's got a lot of these fluffy things, which means that you don't get as much stitch definition as was intended in the pattern. If you look at the photos on Ravelry, you can really see the yarn. You can really see the stitches clearly, and here you can't. It kind of blends into each other, but because it's called the weight stitch, I feel like all of this extra haziness just like makes it look a bit more like weighty or something like that. So I'm pretty happy with that, so I hope the recipient likes it too. I was a bit concerned because I bought the yarn and then I looked it up on Ravelry, and there were a lot of people saying that they just wouldn't use it for socks again after making a pair of it with socks, because they were saying that it broke lots, and that it just didn't seem strong enough. And I'm not finding that at all. I haven't had any breakages. I think, I mean, if I pull it, it's gonna break, but I mean, yarn does that anyway. Like if I have to pull it pretty hard for the yarn to break, I'm not sure what, yeah, maybe some people had just gotten bad batches, but I was concerned because there were quite a few people saying it, and this is, I mean, it's Rowan. It's a really reputable yarn company, and it's a really popular, like Rowan felted tweed, as far as I'm aware, it's one of, it's a really popular yarn. So I was surprised that there were so many bad reviews, but I'm really liking it. But because of the bad reviews, I did nearly decide to go with another yarn, which is the yarn that I will use if and when I make it for myself. So that yarn is it's New Zealand Naturally, oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's one that I've had in my stash for ages, and I actually got it. I have it in 4 different colors, but this one particular color, this light gray, I was originally going to make a pair of long cable mittens for this same person, and then I found out she has no interest in gloves and mittens, whatever, so I gave up on that, and they'd been sitting there. So I bought this, and then when I read all the bad reviews and got scared, I remembered that I had that and that I had got it for her, so I was like, oh, I'll just make that. And then as I got closer to being ready to cast on this, when I was finishing these other projects, I just kept thinking about it, and I really think that now this color is more her. So I figured, I bought this for her to make these socks. I figured I'd just go for it and see what happens, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. So I'm glad that I haven't let those reviews sway me, and I hope that they hold up well. I will be doing the heel flap. I will be using some knitting in elastic when I do them. So like I said, when my first rendition of these, I had gotten up to the gusset and I had done the heel flap on one, and I had held this elastic, and it's so fine that you couldn't even see it. But I mean, even if you could, there are flecks of white in this tweed yarn anyway, so I think it would have been fine. But yeah, I'll be holding that knitting in elastic when I do this. This isn't 100% wool. It does have some rayon in it, which I think will add to, which I think will give it some more strength and durability. But I have this, why not use it, just to be safe, because I, do hope that these will last. Let me see if there's anything else I had to say about this. My Kindle keeps turning off. Second pair of top socks, puffy stitch. Yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say about these. So I will have gifted them by the time I do my next episode next year, so I'll just take some good photos and have to show you those. So the other things that I still have to make this year, or that I want to, are those two scarves that I mentioned that I'm going to do on my knitting machine. So my knitting machine has a ribbing attachment, so I'm going to do it in ribbing. So there are those two. There's the baby set that I have to make, and I feel like there's something else, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, there's an oven mitt that I've sort of tried to design, that I'm still kind of working through the pattern and knitting it up, but I'll present that properly and talk about it more next year as well. So I have been going on about my knitting for quite a bit, so I guess I should wrap up. So I do want to end this episode with my gratitude segment. So looking back over this year, I mean, this is my knitting vlog, and I do just want to express how grateful I am for this hobby that I have of knitting. It really does give me so much joy and comfort and fulfillment. I have talked in a previous episode about how there are certain moods or situations or whatever that I get in where I don't want to knit, because I don't want to knit those emotions into the products that I'm making. So like if I'm feeling really sad, I don't want to knit, because I don't want to knit sadness into my products and then give them to people, because I really feel like the yarn holds those emotions, and I've talked about that before. But I did also find I did find more recently, like after my grandmother passed away, it was interesting, because earlier this year when my uncle passed away, I did not want to knit, and I put it aside for a while, and I just was not feeling in the mood. But after my grandma passed, I mean, there was still a period where I just wasn't feeling like knitting, but I did go back to it sooner than I did earlier in the year. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting, because I was sad. I was still sad, of course, and I am still sad, but this time I was really finding the comfort in the process, and not feeling like I was knitting my emotions into the product. It was more like I was getting comfort from doing it, and it's like it was sort of easing my pain in a way, having this thing that I could go to, and the yarn feels good in your hands, you're making something. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for for knitting, you know, and like I always, like it's kind of just always there for me. I never really feel like I'm lost for what to do, because I always can just go to my knitting. I never really feel bored, because I don't have time to feel bored, because there's so many things that I want to make. There are so many things that I want to make. Like I just wish I could knit all the time, and just get through. I have this like I have this FOMO of like, what if I don't get to knit all of the patterns that I have in my queue and in my favorites in Ravelry, and which is ridiculous. There are so many. I don't need them all, but I want to make them all. Like, they're just, knitting is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Yeah, I love knitting. So anyway, that's what I'm grateful for. So that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope that you've enjoyed watching me share all of this year. And I hope that you come back next year for maybe a slightly different, probably not, but I hope that you come back next year for a more frequent vlog. And see more of my knitting adventures. I'm quite keen to get back to making some bigger items now that I've just been churning out all of these smaller projects. Yeah, so I hope you come back next year. I hope you have a good holiday season, however you celebrate, whatever you celebrate, whether you celebrate or not. So I just hope you have a good summer for those in the southern hemisphere with me down here in Australia, a good winter for those of you in the northern hemisphere. I hope you have a good end to the year, and I hope your 2022 starts off well. So just to get through all of the what do you call it? I've just got the word formalities in my head, because that's what Aaron and Carlos call it, and I've been binging their vlog now, and now I've forgotten what I refer it to. But anyway, the things that I have to say. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified when I do put out more videos. And yeah, I'd love to hear as well if anyone else has been if anyone else has decided to make knitting, what am I even trying to say? If anyone else has decided to knit Christmas gifts when they haven't before, or if you always knit Christmas gifts, what kind of things do you make? I'd be really interested to hear that in the comments. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram at Platypus Knitting, and I am on Ravelry under my own name, Bobby Olan. So that is it for this vlogisode. I will see you next year. So long, and knit on.